So this idea for kind of a novelty, fill in the gap kind of workout, something specialty, something I'm off routine, I'm in between routines and I need something to do, or I can't do my current routine right now, but I want to do something. Alright, well, a good option is always isometrics. Isometrics are great. They're just fantastic. But, you know, there's, like with anything, there's standard anatomical isometrics, and then there are, you know, kind of advanced, interesting, off-balance, acutely balanced, kind of weird isometrics. The same thing with dynamic exercise. There's kind of your standard strength building stuff, and then there's the stuff over here that may not build you the kind of strength you're looking for, but will build other aspects. So, like I said, this is kind of a novelty idea, but let's use the Ki Blast formations that they use in Dragon Ball, specifically the Dragon Ball Z saga. Thinking of a couple off the top of my head. So back up a little bit, maybe you can see this a little better. So you have, let's start with the classic, the Kamehameha. You're in kind of a classic, fighting stance, a 45-degree angled stance. Tends to be more of a horse stance type deal. So your knees are going to be bent at about a 45-degree angle, like a karate horse stance or a karate bow stance. Bow stance is really the right word for it. You can, of course, go down into a full low horse kung fu style. But the interesting part is the hands. Now you can see here they're loaded. One is across my body, one is back at my waist. The idea, of course, being that I'm gathering energy off here to the side. It's kind of in the motion of a karate punch, except now I'm using both my hands, right? You can see. So, what do we have? For isometrics, what we can do is we can apply pressure in a somewhat pressing motion here on the top hand, and a somewhat pulling motion here on the back hand, pulling backwards, and of course pulling upward, just like we're squeezing a ball and pulling it back toward the side. So you've got activation through the delts, the biceps, the triceps, the forearms. Because your hands are there like you're holding, you can kind of curl your fingers a little bit, just like you're holding the ball, get a little bit of forearm and hand work in there. Now, of course, you should be squeezing your legs while you're doing this. Your stance should be relatively even, but remember the Kamehameha is not a stationary move. When he does finally throw it, his weight shifts forward, just like in many karate forms, in fact, where they shift their weight forward when they strike before they move on to the next move. So you have an evenly weighted stance into a forward stance or a forward bow. So you can work this as a two-part isometric exercise. Work here. Now you can maintain the tension and move slowly, dynamic tension style, and press out through there, move slowly, and then give a final 10 to 30 second squeeze on the very end, the extension. So you're pressing out, flexing your chest, flexing your triceps mainly, pulling your hands back. We don't do enough of this opening anyway. So holding the hands back and squeezing out the isometrics there, it's good practice. So a couple others that you can do. Let's go with the special beam cannon. And of course, many of these are unilateral, so you're going to want to do them on both sides. But with a special beam cannon, they load here. The dynamics are fairly psychic, so they load in front of their head here. And this is Piccolo's on a special move. So, loading here, and if you notice in both the manga and the anime, when he's loading in a fairly neutral stance once again. This could be just a regular horse stance or even a low horse stance. But here's the interesting thing. His energy is going more sideways. And that's because he's shooting a beam out from the side. He's using his body back, his body to back up the form of it. Interestingly enough, in Wing Chun, we use this in this formation in our pole form, and we use the structure of the side of the body to back up the with the mass for those sideways thrusts. Same idea here. So you're loading up here. The fingers aren't that important, but we can always use a little more tension on these two small fingers. So getting a little bit more squeeze here in the small fingers, keeping the thumb tucked, just give you a little extra emphasis on the outside of the hand. And from here, when Piccolo does it, he actually shifts his weight back into kind of a side lunge, or it could be seen as a back-weighted bow stance. But you could play with it either way. But either way, he's actually coming back a little bit, almost like he's absorbing some recoil. So once again, two parts: the load, you can move slowly through it, and then extend out, pointing the fingers out from the side, tensing the associated muscles, tensing the legs, gripping the ground. Two more and then we'll call it quits. Gohan's Masenko, which he learned from Piccolo, of course, loads up here. Once again, it's a dynamic technique, so it comes more from the third eye, the psychic center, rather than the heart, like the Kamehameha or the Final Flash or so many of the others. But anyway, loading here, well, guess what we've got here? You've got a modified version of like a pull-up, right? So you can squeeze in the lats at the shoulder blades. You can work all sorts of interesting loads here through the arms. This is very much a frontal stance. He doesn't tend to go into a deep stance, so you can work more like the Yichi Kimyong Ma kind of stance, or even just a traditional karate stance here. Get creative. But he tends to have a shallower stance. So here, and then he works in here, elbows, and the hands. Here, it's an interesting motion, right? So you're opening up the arms and pressing forward. And so now, because this one is bilateral, or omnilateral, or however you want to say it, this one you don't have to practice on both sides, unless of course you want to deal with having one hand in front of the other and making sure that that gets evenly worked. But that one you can work through the back, and of course just maintain gripping the ground and tensing the legs where you can. And of course, like I said, you're breathing through all these. The last one to work that I'm going to pick here is going to be Vegeta's Final Flash. This one he did floating, and he only did it once in the series. But at least that I remember. I don't remember him calling out the Final Flash any other time. But anyway, he was flying, floating at the time, so he didn't have a stance. But it was square. So I would encourage you to work, a shallow horse stance or something, just to stay in connection with the ground. But his hands are wide. And his palms, once again, are back. Gathering energy out here. This is a perfect time for you to work the mid-back. Squeeze the back, and then it's just like dumbbell flies. Squeezing in until you're here. If you don't like Dragon Ball, go with Guile's Sonic Boom. From out here, in. Of course, that one wouldn't, you could do it isometrically, but that one really is meant more as a dynamic thing. But anyway, Final Flash. Out, you can even press out. Really, really work the press, and then squeeze it in. Really work on kind of that concaving, that power chambering of the entire anterior side of the body there. All right, I'll add one more because we're about to hit the 10-minute mark. But, Spirit Bomb. It's fairly relaxed stance, but once again, grip the ground. Here, it's an overhead press. It's almost straight out of the iron wire form in Hung Gar Kung Fu. So just the overhead press, and then it's literally just a drop. So you can work that, which, guess what? It's a lot like working the ab wheel, right? Or working the front lever. So there you go. Get a little creative. Start thinking of things that you can do. Yeah, maybe you're sitting down to watch Dragon Ball, or you're sitting down to watch, some other thing, or you're in between rounds on Street Fighter or Tekken or something like that, and you go, wow, I got 30 seconds. All it takes is 10 to 30 seconds for an isometric rep. I mean, if you're squeezing the shit out of yourself, you're not going to have more than 30 seconds anyway. So there you go, just a brief idea, novelty idea for a fun in-betweener kind of workout. I will talk to you guys later. Good journey.